little self-serving, but alas, I'll be the third band member speaking. When I heard the theme was space, then I don't know why I felt inclined to speak. So I've always had kind of a personal connection to space throughout my life, and that's kind of woven in with my parents who are here tonight. So I kind of wanted to speak on that, and I'm not as off the cuff as Jeff, so I'll be off book here. I've come to realize lately that the real paradox of space, the infinite expanding abyss of silence, darkness, and uncertainty, is that despite its massive, often oppressive size, scale, weight, magnitude, violence, destruction, when we stare into the sky at night to see the stars, those insanely huge, hot, vicious, burning balls of gas and fire, maybe dead, and we contemplate the overwhelming sense that we are a mere tiny speck of nothingness in some giant cosmic sand mosaic we'll never understand. In the weirdest way, what we are really feeling, or at least what leads me to feel, is actually a feeling of closeness and connection. It reminds us of what it means to be human and how we're all connected by at least the fact that we're zooming through time and space on this watery ball together. I mention this because I've had a bit of a return to space myself lately due to unforeseen circumstances of a divorce. I found myself with the very rare and exciting opportunity to move back into my childhood bedroom at my parents' house. Just how every kid pictures themselves at age 39. To say it has been bumpy at times is to say that space is kind of large. Every night when I'm staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars I applied to the ceiling in 1992, I can hear my childhood self laughing at me maniacally, "You're back, you failure!" And despite my sarcasm, I do know how lucky I am to have my parents close by, and how even luckier I am that they allowed me to move in with them in the interest of peacekeeping, knowing that that also included 4 kids aged 9 and under from time to time. I'm sure this is not how they pictured spending their twilight years either, but hey, the universe unfolds as it may. And all we can sometimes do is let go and enjoy the ride. I've watched my parents let go of their routines, their disciplinary standards, and even their strict rules on when the hot tub can be turned on, in an effort to adapt and help my kids and I overcome the current turbulence on our galactic flight. That is what I've come to learn great parents do. They're always ready to resume their seat at mission control, guiding you back to familiar and solid ground. They help you earn your flight wings. Mine have always been like that, even literally when I came home from school in junior high begging my parents to send me off to space camp in Huntsville, Alabama over the summer. Now, I'm a child of the 90s, so space camp was a mythical and futuristic paradise as promised in the grand prizes of so many great Nickelodeon game shows like Double Dare and Guts. You guys know the image I'm talking about, the kids spinning around and around in the multi-axis thing. It was like, that was the place to be. It was the coolest. And I never considered there was a way for me to attend space camp besides winning a slime-laden physical challenge until one day in 6th grade when an advertisement in the back of some scholastic magazine had an ad for the camp. So my friend, Pat McGunn, and I, we hatched a plan to ask our parents if we could go to camp together so as to assuage their concerns with us flying and traveling to Alabama just as kids. Sure enough, after some begging on both of our ends and communication between the parents, they agreed to send us off to space camp over the summer. I should add, it was actually Space Academy. It was a version of space camp for older nerds. I mean, kids with a greater emphasis on math and science. So I just want to let that be known, more of the real deal. Either way, we were in and we couldn't wait. So cut ahead to the summer. It's the week before camp. I'm so excited for the adventure ahead. I keep dialing up my buddy Pat McGunn to get a hold of him, make some plans. Several days go by, I still can't get a hold of him. I'm starting to freak out, T-minus, we're getting close to camp. So finally one day, his dad picks up the phone after relentless calling, and he quickly informed me Patrick had been shipped off to military school, and he would be gone and unseen and unheard from for the foreseeable future. So my co-pilot was, I felt bad for him, apparently at military school now, so he was now pursuing a role with the Army as opposed to the future Space Force, but alas, I pressed on. So it was now a solo flight, and more than likely, too late to get a refund on camp. So the decision was made I would travel off to Space Academy alone. This was pre-9/11, when your loved ones could do dramatic things like walk you to the gate. And I'll always remember my mom sobbing as she and my dad watched me walk down the jetway on the plane alone. I was already homesick, seeing how much they loved me, and a little nervous about my expedition into the great beyond. But despite my reservations, my parents had prepared me for that flight and knew it was time to let me try and fly solo. Besides, what's the worst that can happen? The airline slapped a big red sticker on me that said, "Kid traveling alone." Anyway, I made it to Huntsville, Alabama. I boarded a bus to the Space Center and I found my bunk in the futuristic aluminum can-looking dormitory. It was very much like a set from Nickelodeon. It definitely did not feel like home. I didn't know anyone. I felt out of place and worried I had made the wrong decision to attend camp. I was picturing my friend Patrick being yelled at by some psycho drill instructor somewhere and thought maybe that would be preferred to this empty loneliness I'm feeling in my tin can in Huntsville, Alabama. But there was a payphone in the dorm, and I remember using a collect call to call home from bunk Alpha Pod 18A on the first night to check in with my parents. I could barely get a word out from the back of my throat as a small line formed behind me because I was so homesick. I wanted to go home. I expected my mom, who I saw crying at the airport, to feel the same way. Surely she would move mountains and arrange to have me transported back to home base. You know, scrub the mission. But of course, that's not what my mom said. She was strong, no longer crying. She asked me about the stuff she knew I thought was cool. The giant space shuttle, the simulators, the museum, and she sounded excited. She was proud of me for flying across the country alone. As I described these things to her, my voice began to sound more loud and clear. I was not drifting through this spacewalk alone. I was still tethered safely to the ship and in touch with those who knew what's best for me, even if thousands of miles away. I got off that phone, refueled, recharged, and excited for the rest of camp, so I could tell my parents all about it. And I even met a cute girl named Bree from Canada, so camp turned around quickly. But before leaving Alabama to fly home, I visited the gift shop at the Space and Rocket Center to bring some souvenirs home for my loved ones. I got my brothers and my dad some space food, you know, freeze-dried ice cream, and I got my mom a coffee mug that says Janet from the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, because Mom loves coffee, you know? When I moved back home after the divorce and I went to have my first cup of coffee, waking up in my childhood bedroom, I found that mug in the cabinet, still proudly serving up coffee to Janet each and every morning. My mom has always encouraged the space-loving side of my personality, and to this day, we remain not only connected by this experience from space camp, but she continues to remind me of the space-loving side of my personality regularly. To her, I think it reminds her of my innocent youth, curiously exploring the wonders of the universe, but to me, it reminds me of how my parents love and support me to the moon and back. Because of the last year or so has been a little tumultuous, to say the least, there has been some friction in the house from time to time that my parents have certainly been the unfortunate recipients of. It has unintendedly caused some hardship and damage to our personal relationships as well, most of it my fault. There's a lot going on and a lot to think about. Sometimes it leads me to be a little withdrawn, maybe up in my childhood bedroom alone, you know, brooding like I'm a teenager all over again. But I want my parents to know unequivocally that I love them to the moon and back, as I said, and I could have never earned my wings without them in my corner. There's no mission failure I can't return from because I've got them sitting sturdily in their chairs at mission control, guiding me back on nominal trajectory. And even though I might ask for space, I owe them my whole universe, and I'm forever grateful. Thank you.